Picture this. It is January 2026. You are sitting at your kitchen table, the glow of your laptop screen reflecting in your coffee mug. You are looking at a listing for a home. It's nothing special. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, maybe a small patch of grass that the listing agent generously calls a landscaped garden. It is roughly 1,200 square feet, a basic, entry-level, standard American house. And the price tag? $500,000. You have done everything right. You went to school, you got the job, you climbed the career ladder, and you saved your soul. But as you type your salary into that monthly payment calculator, your stomach drops. You realize something terrifying. The math simply does not add up. Not for you, not for your friends, not for anyone you know who doesn't have a trust fund. You assume you missed something. You assume you just need to budget harder. But here is the truth nobody wants to tell you. You didn't miss anything. The system broke while you were busy working. This is not a joke, and it is not just in your head. The irony of the 2026 housing market is that while home prices have finally started to flatten out, they have flattened at a record-high plateau that is mathematically unreachable for the vast majority of the population. According to the Atlanta Fed's housing ownership affordability moniker, owning a median-priced home right now consumes a staggering 47.7% of the median household income. Let that sink in. 47.7%. For generations, financial experts told us that 30% was the absolute maximum you should spend on housing to remain financially stable. We are now nearly double that threshold. This isn't just a hurdle anymore. It is a generational impediment to wealth. It is a brick wall. And today, we are going to look at the raw, ugly numbers of why the $500,000 starter home is practically impossible. To understand why a basic wood and drywall box costs $500,000, we have to look at the Great Divergence. If we look at the data since the year 2000, your income has likely grown by about 92%. That sounds decent, right? Until you realize that the price of that starter house has jumped by 177% in the same time frame. We are coming off a very strange year in 2025.
We saw this weird economic phenomenon where goods-related inflation, fueled largely by new tariff policies, kept the Federal Reserve from dropping interest rates as quickly as everyone hoped. Everyone was praying for a return to 3% rates. That did not happen. Instead, here we are in early 2026 with a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage hovering around 6.06%. Now, history buffs will say, well, that's historically average. In the 80s, it was 18%. Stop listening to those people, because in the 1980s, a house cost 2 times your annual salary. Today, at 6.06% interest, combined with record-high prices, we have created a cost of ownership crisis that fundamentally alters household economics. Let's stop talking in abstract percentages and break down the raw, painful numbers of this $500,000 starter home. First, let's talk about the down payment. The gold standard is 20%. On a $500,000 home, that is $100,000 in cash. Let's be honest with each other. Who has $100,000 sitting in a savings account right now? If you are a normal person earning a normal salary, saving that amount while paying today's rent prices is a Herculean task. But let's pretend you have it. You drop $100,000 cash. You now have a $400,000 loan. At a 6.06% interest rate, your principal and interest payment alone is roughly $2,415 a month. But wait, that is just the payment to the bank. The house doesn't just cost you the mortgage. You are forgetting the silent wealth killers, property taxes, and insurance. Research shows these costs have exploded, now averaging about 2% of the property value annually across the U.S. That is another $10,000 a year, or to put it in your monthly budget, another $833 a month. So before you have paid for a single kilowatt of electricity, before you have paid for a gallon of water, before you have fixed a leaky faucet, your starter home costs you $3,248 per month. $3,248. Now let's look at the income side of this equation, because this is where the math falls apart completely. Oxford Economics noted late last year that a household needed to earn at least $110,000 just to afford a single-family home. That was the floor. However, the median household income in the United States is still lagging significantly behind that mark, hovering around $80,000 to $85,000. If you were the average American household earning that $80,000, you were taking home, after taxes, maybe $5,500 or $5,500 a month.
If your housing costs are $3,248, you are left with barely $2,000 for food, cars, gas, student loans, childcare, and savings. You are facing a $30,000 annual income gap. Using an everyday analogy, it's like walking into a grocery store trying to buy a gallon of milk that costs $10, but you only have $6 in your pocket. It doesn't matter how much you want the milk. It doesn't matter if you promise to work harder next week. The math simply does not work. No amount of skipping avocado toast or canceling Netflix can bridge a 40% shortfall in purchasing power. But it gets worse. We also have to account for the inventory trap. You might be thinking, if nobody can afford these houses, the prices have to crash, right? Wrong. In 2026, 77% of U.S. markets are still seeing price increases, despite these high rates. Why? Because nobody is selling. People who locked in 3% mortgage rates back in 2020 or 2021 are not moving. They are staying put. This restricts supply, keeping the floor under prices, even though demand is crushed. In major economic hubs, the situation is even bleaker. Look at places like Los Angeles or New York. The price-to-income ratios there have hit 8.2 and 8.8 respectively. This means the house costs nearly 9 times what you earn in a year. In those regions, the starter home has effectively vanished. It has been replaced by a rental market that is seeing record formation because people are being forced out of the buyer's pool completely. This creates a nasty feedback loop. Because you cannot buy, you must rent. Because everyone must rent, demand for apartments goes up. Landlords raise rents. Higher rent prevents you from saving that $100,000 down payment, which keeps you renting, which drives rent higher. It is a perfect storm designed to keep you on the hamster wheel. So, is it hopeless? Should you just give up, move into a van down the river, and wait for the apocalypse? No, but you have to stop playing by the rules from 2019. The game has changed, so your strategy has to change. What is the actionable move in this 2026 landscape? First, you must pivot away from the traditional existing home market. You know, that charm-filled 1970s ranch-style house on Zillow? Ignore it. The sellers of existing homes are delusional about their prices. Instead, you need to look toward home builders. Research shows that builders are increasingly desperate to move inventory. Unlike a regular homeowner, a builder cannot hold onto a house forever. Every day that house sits empty, they lose money. So they are using aggressive mortgage rate buydowns. We're seeing builders offering permanent rate buydowns that can get your interest rate into the low 5% or even high 4% range for the first few years. That massive drop in interest rate can save you $400 to $500 a month. That is the difference between impossible and painful but doable. Second, geographic arbitrage is no longer optional. It is a requirement. I know, you want to live in Phoenix or Miami or San Diego, but the math in those cities is broken. While a $500,000 home is impossible in those markets, look at the data for 2026. Markets like Detroit, Chicago, and Houston still maintain price-to-income ratios closer to the 30% affordability mark. You have to stop looking for a house and start looking for a specific mathematical ratio. If your job allows remote work, or if your industry exists in the Midwest or the Rust Belt, you have to consider it. You aren't just moving for the scenery, you are moving to escape financial servitude. A $300,000 mortgage in Michigan leaves you with a life. A $600,000 mortgage in Florida leaves you with an ulcer. Finally, and this is the most important mindset shift you need to make, stop measuring your success by 1990s standards. In 2026, household formation is changing rapidly.
The idea of one person, or even one couple, buying a home entirely on their own is becoming an antiquated concept for the middle class. We are seeing a massive rise in co-buying. Friends buying duplexes together, multi-generational living where parents and adult children pool resources to buy a larger property. This is a tactical response to that 47.7% income to mortgage burden. If the math of a single income or dual income household doesn't work for a $500,000 home, the only way to win is to change the variables of the equation. You either dramatically lower the cost through builder buydowns, or you increase the household size to split that $3,200 monthly burden. The starter home isn't dead, but the blueprint of how you get it, buying it alone at 28 years old with a white picket fence, that blueprint is dead. The reality is harsh, the numbers are cold, but understanding them is the only way you don't get crushed by them. Don't let social pressure force you into a mortgage that ruins your life. Do the math.
If it doesn't add up, don't sign. It is better to rent and build wealth elsewhere than to be house poor in a home you resent. Stay smart, stay calculated, and don't let the market play you.